Hi, welcome to the Wellness Midwife Podcast. I am the Wellness Midwife and my name is Nasheana. Today we will be talking about caesarean sections and women that make the decision or the choice to elect for a caesarean section. If any of the conversations resonate with you today or on any of my other podcasts, please find me at Instagram, _wellness midwife, or my page is www.thewellnessmidwife.co.uk. In the UK, around 42% of all births are babies being born by caesarean section. That equates to about 1 in 4, and that was the latest statistics between 2023 and 2024. I've been a midwife for almost 17 years now, and I have seen the stats increase on a really high frequency. When I first qualified in 2008, actually, I remember being in a trust where if we hit a 25% caesarean section rate, it was really bad. So it'd be interesting to open up the conversation around caesarean section rates and why women elect, why women choose to have elective C-sections, because most women don't realise that they have that choice. So today I will be speaking to a friend of mine, Sherine, who has a lovely little boy who's the same age as my daughter, and Sherine will be explaining and discussing why she opted and chose to have her birth as a caesarean section. So welcome, Sherine.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you for having me. I mean, this is like, we're still new with the Wellness Midwife podcast, so thank you so much for coming on to the programme.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So Sherine, would you like to tell the guests a little bit about yourself and your sort of journey to motherhood and having the option or knowing about the options to elect for your caesarean section?
Great. So it wasn't an easy decision. It was a very difficult decision because obviously, it was my first pregnancy and you just, nothing prepares you for it. There's nothing else I can say other than nothing prepares you for it. I'm an academic. Absolutely. And so what I do is I read books and then I hope that the evidence that I've read and that I know is going to prepare me for situations. But it didn't really prepare me very much for my pregnancy. And it was a very personal experience. And I had to, consult with different people. I consulted with the literature, I consulted with friends and family. And then in the end, I did opt to have a C-section instead of a natural birth. And the reasons for that are quite complex. And then I feel that most of the time, those choices tend to be simplified. There's a lot of prejudice against women who make those choices, that you're too posh to push, for example, or that, you're not brave enough, you're not courageous enough. And actually, I think those interpretations are the better ones. There are some even, more demeaning interpretations of that you don't care enough about your child and that you prioritize your own welfare or your own interests above those of your baby. And I think that, again, as I mentioned, that it's a very personal journey. And what I did was what prompted me to select a C-section are 3 things. One is that, as I said, I looked at the evidence that what is the likelihood of a woman opting to have a natural birth, to get it done without any complications. And actually the percentage in my area at the time was quite low, that the majority of women within my age group, above 30, would have complications even after a natural birth. And those complications varied from like minor tears to much more, complex situations. And so that was one reason where I thought, well, okay, so it's not black and white. It's not one or the other. both choices have pros and cons, and I need to weigh them within the context of my own life and my own, and my own mental health and well-being. And so this was one reason. The other reason is that my mother had me through a C-section, and so you always look up, you look to your parents and their own experience as parents, and you try to get advice that way. And I felt that this is something that at least I'm familiar with through her stories and through her own experience. And then the third one was that I didn't have a lot of family around. I'm originally Egyptian. And I only had my husband's family around, who are wonderful and who, took care of me and looked after me and everything. But, there was a feeling of loneliness and fear that I would go through it on my own, with a lot of that unpredictability that comes with a natural birth. And so I preferred to have, a clear timeline, have conversations with a doctor, and know when to get into hospital, when I'm going to have my baby, and just plan it that way.
And that sounds like a very informed choice that you made. What enabled you, or what empowered you, or who empowered you to know that you were able to make that choice, or take those steps, if that makes sense?
So actually, I didn't know, because what happened, the way it panned out was that, so I went through the NCT classes, like a lot of other women within my area did. And in those sessions, a C-section was, in a way, made to look like less than, right? So I remember the instructor at the time was trying to show me what a C-section would look like. And so she had me sit in the middle, and then she invited 2 or 3, 4 different people to stand around me and said, this is how many people requires for you to have a C-section versus a natural birth.
How intimidating.
It was quite, I think the voyeurism of it, of people looking at you and you think, oh my God, it's going to be like that. And yeah, it made me question myself a lot. And so I started looking into it a little bit further. And then in the hospital where I gave birth, you have to have a series of conversations before you are allowed, or it's acceptable for you to have a C-section. And those conversations tend to be really serious ones about, again, the pros and cons and some of the complications that can result out of a C-section. So I had a lot of those conversations. And yeah, I don't think I felt empowered. I don't think that is the word.
How would you say you were made to feel? Because in my experience as a midwife, and women like yourself saying that they want to elect to have a caesarean section, over the years has become less of a stigma, if you like. But I've been a midwife for nearly 17 years, and I honestly, hand on heart, at the beginning of my career would have been perhaps that sort of, not judgmental, but had the thought of, well, why would you want to have a caesarean section? Would you not want to give yourself the option to deliver your baby vaginally, naturally? But over the years and getting to know women and their families, you absolutely do have that option, and that you can make that decision and what's best for yourself and your circumstances at the time. So can you remember how you were sort of made to feel? Can you think back that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult period, because I felt quite vulnerable, and I felt that I was doing something that was borderline wrong. But I knew that it was the right choice for me, and I was hopeful that people around me would understand that. But I didn't feel that it was perceived as the right choice, or the correct choice. And I think that's the problem with discourse about women in general. Health issues for women tend to be cast aside as less important at times. You know, how many times do you go to your GP and they say, well, it's probably a hormonal, problem that you're going through, or maybe you just need to rest a little bit. The number of times you're prescribed paracetamol, right? And
the wonder drug.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's the same when you're making those choices. That you are in a very vulnerable position. You don't really know what is right for you. Like, if you ask me now, was I 100% absolutely sure this was the right thing to do? No, I wasn't. But I was looking at, again, the evidence, or what I understood to be the variables that I had to make the most of. And I felt at the time that a C-section was right for me and for my context at the time. And going back, I would have probably done it again. I wouldn't have gone for a different.
Well done, you. Well done, you. So we've touched upon a few of the challenges that you faced. I'm hearing a number of challenges. So the fact that you were here on your own with no family members from a different country, you were you're an academic. So from a perspective of pregnancy, you were a slightly older mum. So you're used to being in control and used to having things sort of set in stone. What other challenges would you say that you perhaps faced? So what were the midwives like with you, and which part of the UK did you give birth?
So it was in Surrey.
Okay.
And so I did struggle with communication a little bit, or being at the receiving end of certain communication patterns with the health, with the service that I was receiving at the time. And I don't think I'm an exception at all, because all the other women who were part of, my NCT group and other friends who were also going through, were pregnant at the time, we would always share notes with one another and debrief after our conversations with our midwives. And I feel that across the board, a lot of us felt that we were kind of being made to feel that we're making bad choices, that you don't really know what you're doing. You should do it better. So, for example, breastfeeding, like I could not crack that. It was so difficult for me to understand how to make it happen. And again, as someone who is very data oriented, nothing could have prepared me for that. And I would have, appreciated if there was a little bit more hand holding or a little bit more support and just kindness. At the time, my son was, wasn't gaining enough weight, or was losing weight after he was born, and the midwife and the health workers were telling me that I needed to feed him more consistently all through the night. So every hour, wake up and feed him. And I tried to do that, but it still didn't work. But again, in the conversations I was having with the health workers, they would tell me, well, you need to do more. You're not doing enough. You need to try harder. And it's quite difficult.
It's the vocabulary then, or the language that was used with you at the time. It perhaps wasn't that you weren't doing enough. You were doing the best that you could do. But in your particular circumstance, perhaps you were not going to navigate breastfeeding. And, we don't know. But what was your village like at the time? So did you have friends that you could navigate that journey with at the time? Did you have what I call your 3 a.m. Bezzy mate that, every new mum knows at 2-3 o'clock in the morning when your baby wakes up, you just want someone to have a chat to or conversation? Did you have that network, if you like, or that village around you at the time? No.
I wouldn't say so. No, I had friends, I had a network, but that is different from a village.
Yeah.
Like a village tends to be closer.
Yeah.
More present. And there's also a sense of shame about it. And now I'm reflecting back and I'm looking at what happened. But I'm past it. You know, back then, I felt like I wasn't doing enough. Like maybe I should be able to do it. And why is it that I can't do it? You know, and then you keep questioning yourself, and there is a sense of shame that comes with it. How is it that you're not able to feed your baby? Is the worst thing that a mother can be made to feel, that sense of guilt.
Yeah.
And I feel as mothers, we're doomed to feel guilty all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, I still feel guilty that no matter how hard I try, am I a good enough parent? Am I a good enough wife, a good enough mother? And back then it was the same. I was just questioning myself all the time and feeling that, a sense of shame that I wasn't doing enough.
Yeah, it's that whole sense of, I've spoken to another guest about the mum guilt, and it is absolutely real. And again, I feel that we could tick another podcast just about that mum guilt feeling. We feel as though we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, damned if we work full time, damned if we're a stay-at-home mum. You don't seem to feel like we're winning. But you are an amazing mother. You are an amazing academic, you know, and all I can say is that your experience and your story will resonate deeply with a lot of women and men out there. So partners who don't know how to navigate the services or be of support to their wives or their partners. So why do you feel or think that making informed choices matter? How did it help you, and how do you think it could help other pregnant women?
I think it's important to recognize that women going through a pregnancy are going through a massive physical, emotional, mental upheaval. And I don't think people recognize that enough. That when you're standing in a supermarket and there's a pregnant woman standing in front of you, you have no idea what she is going through, what she's worried about, and all the million things that you're thinking about. Am I going to be able to go back to work?
Yeah.
And when I go back to work, I mean, will I have the job security that I need? And there's just a million things and a lot of insecurities that happen during that period of time. And so I think that just changing two things would matter. First, changing the narrative around women choosing what is perceived to be the easier path. You know, life is complicated, and each woman should have the right and the capacity to make the choices that she wants to make based on her circumstances. And we should respect and honour that, irrespective of whether or not we agree with it. But we should allow them that grace and that space.
Absolutely. So what tends to happen now is that women have what we call individualised care plans devised. Yeah. So you are provided with the up-to-date literature or research, and then once women and their families have read that information, then you do with that what you want. So if it comes to the decision that you do want an elective C-section, or you want something completely out of care guidelines, which I don't like to use that terminology, it's your decision at the end of the day. And I believe with the right empowerment and the right support, we should be making women feel held and supported and safe in whatever decision you're making, they're making. So I feel that your story is going to be very powerful, and it will resonate with a lot of women. So thank you for listening to the podcast today about elective C-section. If any of this resonates with you, or you have any questions, or you feel that we could touch upon this topic in more detail, then please get in touch at the _ Wellness Midwife. So Sherine, can you explain, if you want to, about the recovery process of your cesarean section? I know, observing lots of women post C-section and post delivery, every single recovery is completely different. So what was your particular recovery journey like in the postpartum period?
So it is hard. But I remember that I was in the hospital ward and there was a woman opposite me who just had a baby. I'm not sure if it was I think it was a C-section as well. And what we did was following morning after we'd had our babies, I just needed to get out of the hospital, right? And so there's a checklist that you need to get through in order to be allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And so myself and the other woman, we started encouraging one another, right? Okay, we're going to get this done first and then that done.
Have
and
you
so,
wee?
Exactly. So we started off at like 6 a.m. By 3 p.m. we were done. Both of us were kind of, okay, you can do it. Come on, push ahead. So we get out of the hospital, and it was really, really, it was really painful. I struggled to walk to the car and all that. But I would say that from that point onwards, my recovery, like every day, I felt better than the day before.
Absolutely.
I held my son. I know that you're not supposed to do that, but I still
completely the opposite.
Son.
You should be holding your son. Lots of skin to skin. I am not sure where that terminology's come from, but absolutely hold your babies if you've had a C-section. The recommendation is to not do any heavy lifting, hoovering, driving, ironing, because you don't realise how much of your abdominal muscles you use post surgery. So so all the women out there, please hold your babies after you've had a C-section. Cuddle them as much as you can, but the more strenuous activities like driving, for example, were you a driver after having your son?
No, I didn't drive, no.
So the legal requirement, I believe, is 6 weeks that you're not supposed to post having a caesarean section. So that can be quite restrictive on many women who are quite mobile or active. So, but that period of time, enjoy your babies and enjoy your time. So it can differ for different women. And I also know that women who have normal deliveries, as in vaginal deliveries, who have a poorer recovery outcome than a woman who has a C-section. So it's each to their own, and how you take care and listen to the guidance. But that the story made me giggle of you wanting to get out of the hospital, because that's every woman's dream. Like, I just want my own bed. I just want to get into my own bed, and just once I'm home, I'll be fine. I don't want to be on this ward anymore with all these other screaming babies and the heat of the postnatal ward. That's a scenario that I resonate with and hear a lot, and I've heard a lot in my career. So I hear that. So you're struggling to walk to the car.
I struggled to walk to the car, but I was really glad to leave, to go back home.
So Sherine, I'd like to squash the theory going forward from now that if you have a caesarean section birth as opposed to a normal birth, that the bonding is less than with your baby, and that is just not true. All women are encouraged to bond with their babies from what we call in utero. So from the moment you feel your baby's movements, so a 16, 18 weeks, the moment you start to feel those little tickles and the kicks, that's when we encourage you as midwives to start talking to your baby, play music, read to your baby. So the bonding process is not just as soon as you've birthed your baby. It should be a process throughout your pregnancy. So the myth of having a C-section and, not being able to bond with your baby as well as if you have a normal delivery is not true. It's not true.
Now, I haven't experienced, I think I've got a wonderful bond with my son. So it never really crossed my mind that was an impediment. But I think it's just natural, as you said, when they're just inside your tummy, you have that very strong bond with
absolutely. So let's squash that myth.
Good.
So Sherine, going back to a few of the challenges that you faced, what was your experience of feeling heard during your maternity sort of process and pregnancy process? Because I know statistically that the new statistics or the ongoing statistics are that women from Black or Asian or minority backgrounds are 5 times less likely to feel that they are heard during their labour or their pregnancy or any kind of conversation that they have during their pregnancies, whether it comes to requesting pain relief or just not feeling heard. How would you say your experience?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I did not feel that I wasn't heard or that I was less heard than other women within my group who are, white.
Yeah.
And I think it could be a mix of factors here. One of them is that I do make myself heard.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, as you've
You
seen,
must listen
to shut me up. And I will make myself heard when I need to. So I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that my ethnicity or my background was in any way making me feel less heard. But I do feel that in general, I do feel in general that women's concerns or women, there is a prejudice against women in general when it comes to having a C-section, and that was a problem, definitely. And then after giving birth, I think the sense of loneliness that I experienced maybe wouldn't have been the case if I'd had a broader, stronger community around me where I lived, or maybe that would have made a difference. But do
you feel that if you had relatives or your mom around, that loneliness perhaps would have lessened or been less?
Yeah. Because I remember at the time there was a matchmaking app. I don't know if it still exists, but it's it's like a matchmaking app for mothers.
Okay.
On maternity leave or something like that. If you want to find a friend, then you find a friend that way. And I remember accessing the app and starting to think, I'll put together a profile for myself. Then what am I going to say? And it's so awkward, for a 30-plus-year-old woman to say, I want a friend or I'm looking for a friend. It was very strange. So I didn't do it in the end. I don't think I set up a profile, but there was an app that was trying to address that issue for women on maternity
I'm trying to think what that app could have been. I'll have to pin that and find that out. But being a new mum, first, second, third, I will always say this, there is that element of feeling very vulnerable. That isolation is definitely real, and you do feel like it's just you. But you sound like an absolutely well-rounded, intelligent woman. So I feel so proud that you felt empowered to make that decision, and clearly it was the right decision for you. But your story is very inspiring.
Thank you.